What's going on, everybody? Today we're breaking down all things about the Green Bay Packers, getting some of our most fantasy relevant questions answered, seeing if it's just me who's crazy to still be believing in MarShawn Lloyd, if there could be a segment or just a figment of truth to that, what to make of this new look wide receiver room, how is Tucker Kraft feeling, all that and much, much more. And I have a very special guest today to help us accomplish all that. We got Eli Berkovits in the house at Book of Eli _NFL over on the old Twitter sphere. You can find his writing over at 24/7 Sports and the Packer Report, also co-host of Pack a Day podcast. Eli, welcome, my man.
Appreciate it, Ian. Been a big fan of yours on all your fantasy content. Twitter, got to say, one of the best Twitter follows out there. I'm sure you get that a lot, but always love your meme posting and all that. Very good stuff over there. And yeah, happy to talk fantasy with you, Packers football. I was out at training camp for a few days already. Obviously, I have a lot of friends who have been there either every day or most days. So feel very confident in what's going on over there. And yeah, MarShawn Lloyd, I'm right with you. We'll get into it, but I will never give up on that, man.
Eli is an awesome follow as well. Again, really does a good job blending, of course, his Packers propaganda, but also plenty of good, actionable fantasy-related stuff. And that's what we're looking for, man. I know it's a fantasy football in real life. We always have this weird divide going on because, let's face it, a lot of us fantasy nerds can be quite annoying when our team loses and that stuff. But end of the day, we're all looking for usage and just seeing who's playing well. I like to think someday we can all get along, and maybe this is a good first step, Eli. But let's not bury the lead. Let's start off with the MarShawn Lloyd propaganda that I wanted to bring you on here and talk about. Obviously, Josh Jacobs been out with the groin injury for a little bit, also in some legal issues. From what you've seen with your two eyes, does MarShawn Lloyd look like the real deal, Holyfield?
He does, man. And I don't say this as a Packer fan. Like, I was huge on MarShawn Lloyd coming out of the draft out of USC when I had no idea he'd be a Packer. Probably, I mean, I didn't expect him to be a Packer. So I've always been a fan of his. And from the very first day he stepped foot in Green Bay, it's like the guy touches the ball and he's already like 6 yards downfield. I feel like in a way, like Aaron Jones had that effect to him, but Jones was more like strategic with the way he ran the ball. Lloyd is just like, boom, just burst. He's just down the field already. And the first few days of practice, he had a couple big runs, one for a touchdown where it was an outside run to the left. And, I think it was Javon Bullard, who's fast, was chasing him down to the pylon. And he really didn't stand the chance to get to Lloyd there. He beat him by multiple yards into the end zone. And the whole thing with Lloyd, as you said, everyone knows with MarShawn Lloyd, it's always been about health. If the guy could stay healthy, I think he is going to be a good NFL player. So like you said, Jacobs right now dealing with an injury, potentially dealing with a suspension. I thought that might not happen, but now Adam Schefter recently said on the Pat McAfee show that it's still being reviewed. I still lean towards he probably doesn't get suspended. But regardless, if Lloyd is healthy, I think he is someone you're going to want to have on your fantasy teams, especially if you do draft Josh Jacobs or if you have Josh Jacobs in a dynasty league and you don't have Lloyd. I would look to acquire him because I think he's going to be one of the most valuable handcuffs, knock on wood, if he's healthy week one.
Still pretty much free at the end of Yahoo and
Yeah.
ESPN drafts, all right? I know there's plenty of high stakes leagues where we got the sickos already chasing them up in the round 11 or so, but a lot of you guys and me and Eli, we will be playing in some of these more casual leagues as well. MarShawn Lloyd, priority late round handcuff. It was hilarious, man. And again, it sucked that he got injured. That part was definitely not funny, but we finally did get the one preseason game last year. And it's like LaFleur just completely dusted off the entire section of Lloyd plays. I just looked it up, man. He played 11 snaps in that game. He got 4 targets. He got 6 rush attempts, just every single play. Let's see what this guy could finally do. But seeing what he could do, actually being used downfield with the wheel and stuff like that, it does seem like, I'm with you, probably going to see Josh Jacobs in 17 games. But remember, man, LaFleur, even going back to Tennessee, Deion Lewis, Derrick Henry, and then Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon. Like, I'm not saying Lloyd's going to overtake Josh Jacobs, but could you see it being a little bit more of a committee than what it's looked like these past 2 seasons?
For sure. I think, the Packers, they just did not have anyone besides Jacobs that they trusted. Like Lloyd was going to be that guy. He got hurt. Emmanuel Wilson, to be fair, filled in very admirably. I was a big Emmanuel Wilson fan. But this is different. Like Lloyd, I don't know if it's going to be a full-blown committee, but I definitely think that as Jacobs ages, last year he dealt with a knee injury and it really kind of messed up that back half of the season. They don't want to have that happen again. So I certainly think Lloyd is going to get a fair share of touches. I would put it in the 7 to 10 range per game, but let's say when they're both healthy. But I will say, like, Josh Jacobs is just so good at the goal line where when it comes to those touchdowns, I do think Jacobs will own that. But Lloyd's the kind of guy, he doesn't need to be inside the 3-yard line to score. He could take a ball from anywhere on the field and score. I would say with Jacobs being on the field, I think Lloyd will be a really fun DFS play any week and just have one big, touchdown run and someone you want to target, probably pretty cheap. But in fantasy, I do think he'll get touches. He could be like a boom bust flex play in a deeper league. But realistically, if Jacobs is healthy, I don't think he's someone you're going to want to start too often. But there will be some weeks where he just has that explosive play. And right there, that's going to be, a 12-point play for you.
Definitely prime handcuff. Maybe getting a little bit over our skis with thinking there could be some flex value, but hey, big plays certainly don't hate that in some of these bigger leagues. Chris Brooks seems like he is back at practice. We also got Damian Martinez. There seems to still be dozens of truthers out there. Do you have any comments or thoughts on these backup running backs?
So Brooks, I think, is just simply what he is, which is a third down, basically pass blocker, really good at it, but not really, fantasy value, I would say there. Right. And then Damian Martinez, coming out of that draft, and fantasy football nerds, draft nerds were big fans of his. I was a big fan of his. Kind of surprised he fell as late as he did in that draft. And he's looked pretty good in Packers training camp so far. Had a couple nice runs on family night last Friday. So obviously someone that, I don't think is competing right now for many regular season touches, but a Jacobs suspension or this groin injury worsens, I would think that he will end up being that guy who ends up making the roster because Brooks has been dealing with an injury and there's really no one else that I think on the roster, on the 90-man roster, would push for a spot on the 53.
Did seem like there were murmurs of some off the field stuff potentially pushing Damian Martinez down the draft in the first place. Things that, again, we don't know, but I'm with you. Certainly were some promising things about him as a pure on the field prospect. You mentioned family night. It's becoming one of my favorite, just kind of charades that we have going on in the fantasy community, where we got all these, training camp reports and then preseason first team stuff going on. But then we also have the Green Bay Packers family night. I noticed that they came out in a 2 tight end formation, and we did not have Jayden Reed on the field. Eli, have you seen with your own 2 eyes the Packers have multiple tight ends on the field with Jayden Reed at any point this August? Because I know everyone in the fantasy community would love to see it at least once.
I do believe, yes, he has at least been out there. I don't believe he's been targeted, but it has happened. But, Ian, I don't want you to get your hopes up too high because I will say I just don't – I don't agree with it because Reed has been one of the most efficient downfield receivers in football since he's entered the league. And I do think he has the ability, even at his size, to play outside. But they obviously just paid Christian Watson a lot of money. He's going to be on the field every play on the outside. And then Jordan Love just was quoted himself saying, Matthew Golden's locked in at the X receiver spot. So I definitely think for the most part in 2 receiver sets, it's going to be Watson and Golden. That being said, I do think Reed will certainly see at least some snaps in 2 receivers. Like previously, I think I feel bad. I don't remember exactly who gave the stat. I think it was one of the guys at the fantasy points team. But I think Jayden Reed has either 1 target or literally 1 route in a 2 receiver set, in his career.
It's 1 target. It's 1 target.
1 target.
I looked it up myself and started crying.
Yeah, which is just crazy to me. Does not make any sense. But you never know. With Wicks and Dobbs gone, these guys are going to play more. I think they made a real effort to consolidate this receiver room. So I do think Reed can definitely find himself. It's not going to be a ton, but he could. And let's be real, right? And I hope this doesn't happen, but Watson's dealt with injuries before. Golden missed a few games last year. If either one of those guys goes down, I do think Reed will find himself in 2 receiver sets quite often.
Now's going to be my next question because there has been this annoying – I don't want to say annoying because, Packers have had a really good offense. They had Dobbs, they had Wicks, they had a lot of depth at wide receivers last few years, but you would always see 4 or 5 guys kind of out there and it would kind of limit the upside to all of them. You mentioned it, Watson, Golden, Reed. Have we not been seeing Savion Williams and Travis Hunter? Oh, sorry, Bo Melton. What's the difference, right? Sky Moore. We got these backup guys. Have you seen them rotating in as much as past years, or has it really been, noticeable that they are leaning more so just on the top 3?
So the other guys will rotate in, but that's practice. What the weird thing is, they'll do on the first snap of practice, it's starters, Savion Williams, Sky Moore, and then they won't play another snap with the starters the rest of the day. So it doesn't mean much. I think Matt LaFleur just likes to make people upset. But for the most part, I think Matt LaFleur said it this offseason multiple times. Jordan Love has said it. Brian Gutekunst has said it. I think they realize that as nice as it is to have that kind of depth, it's just not the most logical way to run an offense where you have so much rotation at receiver. I think there was a reason they let Dobbs walk, and there's a reason they traded Wicks for not a ton when I think people who watch football see that Dontavian Wicks is a talented player. And I think they traded him because they knew, like, not only did they want to consolidate around these three guys, I think they complement each other very well. You have Watson, that stereotypical big body, downfield kind of guy. He could also work in a bit underneath. Golden, speedster, X receiver, and then Reed, your classic slot guy, really good after the catch with the ball in his hands. So I do think it'll be more consolidated on those three. And I've, for years, since Devontae left, basically, been a big, like, do not draft Packers receivers. I think they're great NFL players, but for fantasy, they don't play enough. They're not consistent enough, and you're going to frustrate yourself. This is the first year where I don't think I've left a best ball draft without at least one. Watson obviously being the top target, and I would say Golden, who I think right now is going after Reed, is probably my next target, and then Reed. And again, I think Reed's a great football player. It's different for fantasy. But this is the first time in years where no Packers bias, because again, year after year, I said, don't draft them, draft a tight end, draft the running back. This year, draft yourself some Packers. I think Christian Watson has as much upside as anyone at the receiver position.
It's funny you say that too, because I recently did a video looking at kind of guys who were going earlier in high stakes drafts versus the home leagues. And it would just make you think maybe more money's going on with the pros. Maybe they know a little bit more than their Joes, especially in early August. And Christian Watson was one of these guys standing out again with the more, high stakes drafters taking him earlier. And all the pushback was immediately just, I'm done with this. I've drafted Packers wide receivers every single year. It just doesn't work out. It does seem like the tide could be turning there. Interesting to hear you pretty high on Matthew Golden here, man. He flashed, obviously had a great playoff game, and there were plays. I think it was the one catch down the sideline against the Browns or whatever, nearly could have stayed in bounds for 95 yards. Weird play against the Cowboys. I get it. I look back at his season though, and I'm like, man, Watson was out. Reed got hurt. Like, it kind of went his way early and he had his opportunities. He just didn't make much of it. Do you see, like, just again, reason to believe that he has taken the next step and not only has more opportunity, but could actively be further along in his development and just ready to be a better NFL player?
Yeah. I mean, I really do. I think he's one of those guys where you're not wrong. Like last year, Reed went out in week 2. Watson missed the first 8 games. Dobbs missed a couple games. Wicks missed a couple games. Like, Kraft obviously got hurt. It should have been there for him, but it wasn't like he was getting 8 targets and catching 2 balls. Like, he just wasn't getting the targets. And that was the story out of college, right? He wasn't a high-end target earner. And I know a lot of, fantasy nerds are very into the target earning kind of statistics. But I think if you watch his film, you see how good of a route runner he is. He's consistently getting open. And one thing, maybe the thing that I noticed the most when I was at Packers camp, and it's been a steady drumbeat since then, is that Jordan Love is just targeting this guy over and over and over and over. I mean, and it's just, when I was there specifically, it was Love gets the snap, and it looked like Golden was his first read on literally 70% of those plays. Like, yes, Tucker Kraft's not out there right now, but still, like, Watson's on the field. And more often than not, it was Love gets the snap, looks for Golden. If he's not open, then Watson a little deeper downfield becomes the option. But I think Golden is going to get peppered with a lot of targets. There's a reason they drafted this guy in the first round after going 20 plus years without drafting a receiver. And I get it. There are some people who didn't like his profile, but I just think if you watch him play, you watch the way he runs his routes, and he has great hands. Like, he didn't struggle with drops. A lot of Packers receivers have in the past. He wasn't doing that. So again, I don't think it's going to be the kind of guy you want to have to trust week in, week out in your fantasy team, but I really like him. Like, you get him as like your wide receiver 4, and he's like a great boom bust guy where you put him in at your flex. And I don't just think it's like, well, hopefully he comes down with a 60-yard touchdown like Marquez Valdez-Scantling back in the day. Like, he's going to, I think, catch 4 to 6 passes a game. It's just a matter of, will one of those go for 40 yards? Will one of them be for a touchdown? But I know that they want to get him the ball based on everything they're saying. Jordan Love really loves him. Every photograph that comes out of Packers camp of like guys on the sideline, it's always Love and Golden standing next to each other. I think they want to get this guy involved, and I think they're going to do it.
And that's half the battle sometimes, man. So, and honestly, can't say enough good things about the price on Yahoo specifically, because it can change, across providers. And I know, guys, maybe not in your league, kudos to you, a scholar, for being in a sharper league and stuff. But just based on the drafts going on at Yahoo, man, wide receiver 55 going all the way in round 11. Yeah. Guys like Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel going ahead of Matthew Golden. Not in our drafts, though, Eli, not in our drafts. The offense as a whole, This stat blows my mind. Rich Rebar, he's been on the show before, at Lord Reeves, again, legend. The 2025 Packers averaged 8.9 possessions per game that did not end in kneel downs. That is the fewest for a team that he has seen since 1999. The Packers had 31 fewer possessions than the Lions last season, man. And the reason I bring this up is because one of the notes I heard could have been from you or one of the other great Packers beat reporters, but they were saying how there's a bigger emphasis on getting out of the huddle, getting lined up faster, maybe moving with a quicker pace. Like, have you noticed that out there? Because it sure as hell would be nice to have a few more possessions to rack up fantasy points.
Yeah. When I saw that tweet by Rich, it was like the room around me started to like go fuzzy. I was like, is this a real stat? Like it's crazy to me. I feel like that should be a statistic for like the Raiders, where it's like, all right, we want to limit, as you know, just stretch out this game where we're just running the ball and just try to get out of this game, and maybe we manage to win a one possession game. And that is my one biggest like knock on Matt LaFleur, is that he, in my opinion, has an incredibly talented offense with a very talented quarterback, and he plays like he has no talent on offense and a very untalented quarterback. Like he's afraid to just let them go and play. It's very frustrating, but like you said, they have repeatedly said how they want to go a little faster, get out of the huddle faster. I wish they would even, like, I don't see it happening. Like when they go no huddle in like 2-minute situations, they're one of the best offenses out there, and Love is great at it. For some reason, LaFleur just doesn't want them to do it outside of when they have to. But I do think that they're at the very least going to get out of the huddle quicker. It won't always be, 4 seconds left on the play clock and they're snapping the ball. But what would you say? It was 8.9 possessions per game. Like maybe it gets to 10. I don't think all of a sudden they're going to be, the Kellen Moore Saints or something. But right. I agree, man. It is so frustrating. And it is something that it seems like a crazy little detail to think about for fantasy. But when your guys aren't on the field, it's something you got to think about. So I get it. And that's why Jordan Love is someone that I think a lot of people find to be a very talented real life quarterback, but someone that, maybe you'll have as like the 15th quarterback in fantasy. You're not really drafting him much higher than that.
His efficiency numbers are incredible. I think he gets bad, PR because he doesn't throw many picks, but he has thrown some bad ones over the years. Yeah. And we all remember the screenshot of, him hitting the Panthers player in the chest in the end zone, which I hate that backlash, man. Because look, you can find bad plays, but Dobbs went out of the end zone and stopped, and it was fourth down. So he just threw it up, man. Like the fact that play gets held so much about Jordan Love pisses me off.
Yeah, I was in the end zone. I was at that game in the end zone of that play. And I'm like, what? Number one, of course, I had to go. I'm like, Packers, Panthers. I got to go watch a win. They lose to the Panthers. Brutal. But I agree. And also that play, if Dobbs just came back in bounds, the defender dropped the ball. Like Dobbs could have probably caught that off the deflection. He just stopped. I'm like, what are you doing? But I was going to say it's true. Like Jordan Love over the last 2 years has the fewest number of interceptions of any quarterback, I think with like 500 attempts, like of any real starter. Like everyone assumes, oh, he's this gunslinger, throws a bunch of interceptions. It's really not the case. It's just the problem is he has 2 or 3 like horrendous interceptions that go viral. And then he gets that reputation, but it's not reality.
Could you see them maybe opening up the offense a little bit more? Because again, Love has largely been great. I know he's been banged up, particularly at the very start of 2024, so that didn't make life easier. But, these young receivers have grown up and they've paid them a lot, and they've used a first-round pick on Golden. And again, maybe putting the entire offense kind of around Josh Jacobs in the running game doesn't make quite as much sense. Any thoughts there? Because, again, on the one hand, I say that as someone who wants more fantasy points in passing. But on the other hand, LaFleur is obviously a smart guy, and he's had plenty of success kind of doing what he's doing.
No, I actually do think that will it get to the extent that people like us want? Probably not. But I do think that LaFleur, he said it himself multiple times this offseason, I think they're going to start putting more on Love's plate. I mean, you have the weapons. The offensive line right now, unfortunately, it's got to be the worst offensive line the Packers have had in probably the last 15 years. And it's definitely worse as a run blocking unit than pass blocking. So even if they want to run the ball, you saw it down the stretch last year, they couldn't do it. And Josh Jacobs, as much as I love him, like, what are you going to do? Ashton Genty, great running back last year with the Raiders, couldn't get anything done because of how bad that line was. So I do think they're going to put more on Love's plate. And LaFleur was just interviewed on NFL Network by Stacey Dales, and he said that Jordan Love is the best pre-snap processor when it comes to calling out protections he's ever been around, and he included Aaron Rodgers in that. And that obviously made the rounds over on Twitter. And like, if he really believes what he's saying, and Dale's even said, like you said, ever been around, that includes Aaron Rodgers, and LaFleur didn't back down from it, then I would hope that means he trusts him to call out protections in the pass game. And The communication, I think, has been the best it's ever been. So again, I don't think it's going to be the most pass happy offense in football, but I do think even if it's 3 or 4 more pass attempts a game, that makes a big difference. And I do think with the offense they have now, it's time to really let Jordan Love. And LaFleur said this quote: "I'm going to let him cook. You got to let him cook."
Nice. Let Jordan Love cook. We would absolutely love to see it. You're cooking, Eli. We appreciate your time. Last thing I want to ask you about, though, is obviously the other big piece of this passing game, Tucker Kraft. Maybe Darnell Washington and George Kittle are more entertaining to watch with the football in their hands, but maybe not, man. Tucker Kraft, absolute savage out there. So many big plays. So fun to watch last year. Just unfortunately had that season-ending knee injury. Obviously didn't start off training camp on the field with everyone, but it seems like he's been working his way back. Do you expect him to be out there week 1? And just from your vantage point, has he looked close to 100%?
So as of now, everything we're seeing, I fully expect him to be there week 1, barring any setback. He's been saying it for months, and he's practicing. I think the goal is for him to be back at full practice by the joint practices with the Cardinals, which will be the 3rd week of the preseason, so a couple weeks from now, not too far out. And I was there at training camp, and he was working off to the side, and they told us specifically we're not allowed to film players in rehab, but this guy was moving. You would never in a million years guess that this guy's coming off a torn ACL, doing sprints, cutting, running with the bands around your waist, like the resistance bands, and just powering through it. He was doing like jump squats. He looks healthy, and anyone who watches interviews of him or hears him mic'd up, and I say this in the best way possible, the guy is a legitimate psychopath. Like, he just doesn't care. I have full confidence in him, and I think right now, if you're doing drafts right now, you're doing best ball drafts, take Tucker Kraft, because it is the best value you're going to get at the tight end position. I have him ranked at tight end 4 behind Bowers, McBride, and Loveland. And like, I have him ahead of Warren, Pitts, Fannin. We saw what he could do last year. And I really think maybe week 1 and 2, it takes him a minute to, really knock the rust off. But I think we're going to see pretty much the Tucker Kraft we're expecting to see this year. And, I don't want it to sound like, oh, everything's amazing, everyone's the best on the Packers. But if there's one guy that, like, if I had to come out with only one player in my drafts this year from the Packers, it's Tucker Kraft, because it's a 1Z position, and I'm that confident that he is going to be a difference maker at tight end. And that's saying a lot because I love Christian Watson this year, but Tucker Kraft right now, you're getting him as like the tight end 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8. Like, people love Laporta. I also love Laporta this year, but Kraft is someone that I'm super confident in, and I just think he just doesn't care. Like, LaFleur is going to have to protect him from himself a little bit, but once he's out there, he's out there.
My only concern with Kraft has been the idea that maybe he's not back to 100% yet, and just the way they kind of use him underneath. We would like to see him at full strength to make the most out of it, but sounds like he's pretty close. And then just kind of the volume factor. But again, if we are getting a little more tempo, we are getting a few more pass attempts, and we don't have Wicks and Dobbs to worry about, why not Tucker Kraft stepping into those extra targets as well? So fantastic stuff, Eli. Last thing, do you have any bull calls you want to get through? I mean, sounds like you're pretty high on Tucker Kraft, but if you want to throw something provocative out there, we'd appreciate it.
All right. Something provocative out there. I right now think Kenneth Walker is going. I mean, I don't even talk about the Packers. I'm just talking fantasy in general. But there's like that big cluster of running backs there in the second round. Mm-hmm. And I think both Kenneth Walker and Chase Brown should be first round picks. I'm taking them ahead of, Saquon. I'm taking them ahead of James Cook. I'm taking them ahead of the late first round receivers. Very high on both of them. I think they're both in for career years. And I've seen them go around that like 14 to 18 range. I think they could go in like the 8 to 12 range.
Yeah, I've been calling that the great wall of RBs that we got going on at that round 1-2 turn. Chase Brown couldn't be with you more. He's my number 8 player overall. I even moved him ahead of Jonathan Taylor. What could go wrong at that point, But and then Kenneth Walker, obviously, 43 million reasons for the Chiefs to force feed him the football. Absolutely love that call. Eli Berkovits, again, at Book of Eli _NFL, find his writing 24/7 Sports and Packer Report, co-host on Pack a Day Podcast. We appreciate your time, my man, and we appreciate your time checking out another edition of this this lovely show / podcast. I still don't have an official name for it, but we'll worry about that some other day. If you like the show, then please like the show, and hitting that subscribe button always does help as well. So hope everyone enjoys a weekend full of actual preseason football. We are so back, and we'll be so back again, breaking down more football throughout the summer and throughout the season, obviously. So for Eli, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, take care